and this session called Offensive Azure Security. When you hear this name, Offensive Azure Security, what is that? What it can mean? So Offensive Azure Security means that we will test Azure security from from the dark side, from the offensive standpoint. So you will see the security in the eyes of pen tester or attacker, if you wish. And so that's a goal of this session, to show you some not very optimal configurations that may lead to compromise. And also one more thing, session will be based on live demos, so you will not see a lot of slides. I will use slides just for, to show you where we are now. Before I start the session, before I start something interesting, let me say something boring about myself. So my name is Sergey. Maybe what may be interesting on this slide, I'm Russian, so that's my burden to talk about all of those offensive things, and also that's the reason why I'm speaking English, not any other, not your local language. So I do a lot of insecurity in cybersecurity. So привет, yeah, спасибо. I do a lot in cybersecurity. I do pen test. I also am an instructor, conference speaker. By the way, let me say that I'm pretty smart, because I was speaking at Microsoft headquarters on the conference, and also on Security B-Sides, which is a very well-known security conference. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, here's the link. I have a bunch of certifications, but probably that's not what you want here, not what you want to listen about. You want to know about Azure security. So, and let's start the actual topic. And so that's my agenda. And usually when people look at this, like 3 shapes, and think, so that's an agenda? Are you kidding? Yeah, so no, I'm not kidding. I mean, so that's an agenda, because in this session, I'm going to show you how to compromise things. And so I'm going to compromise 3 environments. First environment will be hybrid Azure AD, hybrid Active Directory, which is going to be OnPrem ID plus Azure AD. Then we'll jump to virtual machines, and I'm going to show you how we can compromise virtual machines. And then we will test PaaS services, so it's like SQL databases, web applications, all of this. And once again, all of this will be based on live demo, so you will not see a lot of slides. And let's get started. By the way, this session is very, very intensive, so I have only 45 minutes. By the way, I forgot to start my timer. Anyway, so I know I have 40 minutes now. And so let's get started. The first environment I'm going to compromise is going to be OnPrem ID, which is synchronized with Azure AD. So I think I don't need to explain you the basics, like we have OnPrem ID, and if we want to integrate that AD with Azure, we want to install AD Connect. That's obvious, of course. What I want to do here, I want to show you what may go wrong when you have this integration. So let me jump to demo and show you my environment. So first, I have a server, AD Connect server. Okay, I can close this at this moment. I have AD Connect server, and so this AD Connect server is already configured. When you configure your AD Connect, one of the things you need to configure, and if you did that before, you know that's mandatory thing. You must connect your server to your forest, and to connect to your forest, you must create new account that will be able to read your forest, your identities, your groups, and so on. So you on this screen. I must click Add Directory, and here I must specify the account that will be able to access your AD. And so on behalf of this account, your AD Connect will access objects in your on-prem domain. Whoops! Oh no, I'm sharing screen. I'm sharing screen. Not, is something shared? Yes, it is. So please. So my first idea, my first thought was I forgot to share my screen. So yeah, I'm sharing. Thank you. When you want to connect your server, your AD Connect server to your OnPrem ID, you must create an account. And so there are two ways how can we create this account. First way is to do it automatically, which is recommended. And you can see here, here's recommended. The first option is recommended. In this case, AD Connect will create account for you automatically. I recommend to follow this option either. Or by the way, you may create account yourself and then delegate all permissions manually. Let's stick on the first option. So I'm going to choose first option. And so let me show you where this account will appear. This account will appear in this folder, users, and it will call msil _ something something something. Let's take a look on the permissions. And if I look at this account is just a member of the main users. So not a problem. Looks like not a problem. But what may go wrong? What may go wrong? So what may go wrong is it's not really go wrong, but you must know about this. When you configure your AD Connect, you also may enable some extra options. And I want to talk about one option. When you enable extra options, account will have more permissions. And so one option is very important. And this option, by the way, is very recommended. So it's important to enable that. It's called password hash sync. So when you enable synchronization, you also will synchronize password hashes from on-prem to the cloud. And this is very good failover option and very recommended by Microsoft. So that's the de facto standard in many environments. It must be enabled. It should be enabled, not must be, but should be enabled. But one of the interesting things when you enable this, account will have extra permission called replicate directory changes and replicate directory changes all. So in this case, account will have more permissions. Let's take a look at those permissions. If I look at the properties and I go to security, properties on my domain, I can find this account. And if I scroll a bit down, look at this. So here I can see those permissions. All right, so you may ask me two questions. First of all, what's the problem to have this permission? What's the problem? Second, all right, as far as we know, if you create account automatically, you will not know the password. So it should be pretty secure. Yes, but let me first show you how can I find this password, and then I'm going to show you how we can use these permissions. So how can we get this password? So if account was created automatically, I don't know the password, but AD Connect must know the password. If AD Connect uses account, it must know the password. So this password will be stored in database. Database is here in this folder, just by default, AD sync database. So the account will be stored there. Credentials will be stored there. Let me connect to this database and show you that real quick. By the way, if you have any questions, I will handle them in the end of the session. So I want to make a presentation smooth. So I will keep one eye on questions, but I will try to handle them only in the end of the session. So let me take a look inside of the database. And here in the column called private configuration XML, I can find, oh, here we go. So here's MSIL account, and it says parameter password is encrypted. So if I look here, is encrypted. So yeah, we have account here, credential here, but password is encrypted. So I cannot just take the plain text value and start to use that. All right, not that straightforward. But who can decrypt this password, this encrypted value? Let me show you this. So if you are a local administrator on AD Connect server, you can decrypt this. And now, and here, bad configuration started. When someone has this permissions to become local admin on AD Connect, this user may get this password. You may do it manually, but it's not straightforward. Or you may download the tool from GitHub called AD Connect Dump. Run that. And look at this. Now I have this account, this username and password. Now, because that's the user account, let me jump to client machine and let me run command prompt on behalf of different users. So let me type the username here and let me copy password from here, copy this and paste here, click OK. So now what I want to do, I want to show you on the client machine how we can use. So we got credentials. Now I want to show you what I can do if I have those credentials. So first, let's take a look. Who am I on this command prompt? Here I'm user JDOM. Let's take a look if I have permissions to enumerate domain controller, C root drive. No, access denied. All right, let's see who am I here. I'm here a MS oil account. And if I try to look at the domain controller C drive, access denied. So regular users, but you remember I have permission to replicate directory changes. So if I open quite common tool called Mimikatz, by the way, I have a different session how to evade antivirus protection because Mimikatz will be detected by antivirus, different story. And so if I open Mimikatz, and in Mimikatz I have a command called lsa dump dcsync. Dcsync means if I have permission to replicate directory, I can synchronize information about any user. And so let's synchronize information about domain administrator with name trainer. And look at this. Now I have user hash. All right, so now I can see user hash. And then if you're familiar with security, you probably know what I will do next. I will run a tag called pass the hash. So I'm going to open Mimikatz again. And then I want to run pass the hash attacks. So I just need to take the hash from here, and place here. All right, I have a third command prompt. Let's take a look what I can do here. Look at this. Now I'm a domain administrator and now I can list the content of the root drive of the main controller. It means I'm a domain admin. So that's how I can become domain administrator. If I was an administrator on AD Connect server. I will give you some recommendations about mitigations in the end of the session, but I think you already understand that you should not give permissions to manage AD Connect to the regular administrators. All right, so that was the first scenario. We compromised hybrid AD, and now from here I can jump to the cloud and then start to pen test virtual machines there. And as an example of virtual machines, I'm going to use Jenkins. And Jenkins, maybe no, maybe not. The Jenkins may be deployed on the Windows machine, on Linux machine, or on Linux machine. So the same installation may be deployed on multiple nodes. And why I'm choosing Jenkins, because I want to show you the Windows pen test and Linux pen test, because it will be slightly different. It may be Jenkins and maybe anything else, doesn't really matter. So I want to show you how I can get into virtual machine without knowing username and password. All right, let's jump back to demo. I'm here, and I'm a domain administrator. And before I start to do anything virtual machines, I want to show you one more thing. If I'm a domain administrator, I can literally have access to any workstation on the network, right? So the domain admin, generally speaking, may connect to any workstation. Even if it cannot connect, he may or she delegate permission to himself or herself to connect to any workstation, any server in the local environment, in the Active Directory. So what I can do, I can connect to workstation where administrator of Azure environment or developer is working already. And let me show you what will happen if I do it. So here in Azure, let's say I want to type AZ account list, and output will be table. And you can see here, I have my subscriptions. Let's try the same on the different workstation. It should not work. It will take a bit longer before I see any. Oh, look at this. It says, hey, you need to run AZ login before you list your accounts. Huh. So here I just open command prompt. I did not type any AZ login, but it allowed me to see all of my subscriptions. Probably it means after authentication, after this AZ login, the token will be cached somewhere. And let's take a look where. So if I go to C drive and user profile, I can find here that Azure folder. And so token will be here. So if I'm a domain admin, I can connect to literally any workstation. And if I connect to the profile, workstation profile of the Azure administrator or Azure developer, whatever it may be, I can get token, AZ CLI token from there. So let me zip it first. Copy this and paste here to my machine. I'll remove this, paste here, extract that, and let's try again. AZ account list, output table, and come on. Yeah, now I can see my subscriptions. So that was a stolen token, and I can have an access to Azure environment. Isn't cool? It is. All right, so now with this token, I can start to pen test virtual machines. First, let's take a look on the list of virtual machines. I can see the list of machines. And I'm interested in those two machines, Jenkins Master and Jenkins Slave. Before I start to show you some ideas how I can get into, I want to jump to Portal. Portal. Huh. Portal. I want to jump to Portal and show you a very interesting option that you may find on the Azure virtual machines. So if I open Windows machine, scroll a bit down, I can find here run command option. So what run command is all about? Here I can, so the concept of Azure is to, in the cloud in general, is to be able to execute some commands without logging to virtual machine. So if I want to run PowerShell script, I can do it from here without logging to virtual machine. So for Windows, it will be PowerShell. For Linux, it will be bash shells, Linux shell. So I can execute scripts without login. And what is funny about all of this, you just need to be reader of the virtual machine to execute any script you want. So if I go to reader, look at this, it's a reader role. Look at the permissions and choose compute. And here, run commands. Yeah, so I can run commands if I'm just a reader. Now let's try to run command. I'm gonna jump back to here. And first command I want to run is how to get a shell to Linux. So I will run this command that must connect to my attacker machine using port 44444. Let's try it. So let's type nc p 4444, and so let's run command. That will take some time. So in parallel, I want to run the same for Windows. So for Windows, it will be slightly different. First, I will download my own payload I create myself, and then I will run it. And because that's my custom, it will not be detected by antivirus. So let's say work on port 5555. So let's run that on for Windows as well. All right, so I already have a shell on Linux, let's take a look. And I'm root because all of those commands, they run with highest privileges. So I'm root. And if I look at the, let's say cd/, and I can see the root drive of Linux machine. So I'm a god on Linux machine. In my case, let me jump back to here to slide. Linux is slave node. In this specific case, I'm more interested in Windows, but in general, it doesn't really matter. I just want to show you how to compromise Linux and Windows machine as well. So let me just jump back to jump to Windows. Let's type who am I. I'm local system, and what I can do, I can find also log, Jenkins log, and maybe you know, maybe you're not, but Jenkins stored its password in the log as well, initial password in the log. So I can try to get logged into Jenkins with this password. To be fair, I don't really care about Jenkins. I told you many times. I just want to show you the concept of pen testing virtual machines. But let me just finish the demo. So I'm gonna try to log into Jenkins. Type admin here, and the password will be this one. All right, so now I'm inside of Jenkins. But once again, it doesn't really matter, Jenkins or anything else. Just want to show you how to get into virtual machine without authentication, so without known username and password from this virtual machine. So that was the second scenario. And from here, let's jump to the last one, which will be the largest scenario, where we have PaaS services. So we have here a bit more complicated environment. So we have application, which is front end, and SQL database as a backend. And so, of course, application will be connected to database. But to connect to database, application will use credentials. But those credentials will not be stored on the application layer. They will be stored on the key vault in Key Vault. And also credentials will be rotated by the function. So should be very nice. And finally, in front of the web application, we have WAF, web application firewall. So it should filter the malicious request. All right, let's start to, let me show you first my environment, and then we'll start to pen test that. I'm gonna close this. So first, let me show you my front end. So that's my front end. If I just type, let's say something, let's say Azure global Azure, whatever, maybe Greece. And so email will be global@gr.com. So let's click submit. And so as you can see here, this application is super simple and it's working. So I was able to register. That's my front end. Backend will be SQL database, which is SQL database. What I can say about this? Just a SQL database. And credentials to connect from front end to backend will be stored in the Key Vault. And so if I go to this Key Vault, I want to see secrets, which is my credentials, and this user doesn't have permissions to even list those credentials. Let me quickly delegate to myself permission, just to show you that those secrets exist. I'm gonna just give a list privilege, and let me find myself real quick. Click select, add, save. All right, so let's go to secrets, and here's the username and here's the pass. So that's two secrets I wanna get content of those. So that's two secrets I'm using to connect the database. All right, so let me remove permissions. And so now let's start the pen test. So how I will pen test? Here in this example, I will use a rotation procedure because this will be the weakest chain link. I don't want to say I find it very often, but I found it at least once. When company had this secret rotation procedure. And by the way, that's a screenshot from Microsoft website, and it's like a recommended way to how can we rotate secrets periodically. And so it was done by function. And the function was taken from Microsoft page, and it's download from GitHub. So function will change the secret and password in SQL database simultaneously. What may be the problem here? The problem is if we configure key vault pretty securely using the access policy, at the same time function is not configured in the same manner. So function has so user may have more permissions on function level compared to key vault. And so what may happen in this case, if I can compromise this function, I can run any code I want against key vault. And so I can, instead of rotate secrets, I can retrieve data from key vault. So let's try to do it. I'm going to jump back to demo. I can close this, I don't need anymore. I think I need the portal, yeah. Let me show you the function application. So if I deploy function application recommended by Microsoft, I will have two functions. One function triggered by event grid. I don't want to cover it here. And second one is HTTP trigger. I can trigger it myself, so I want to stick on this function. So what may be the problem with function itself? When you create function application, FTP access is enabled by default. So look here, FTP access is enabled by default. You probably don't use that. So companies, they don't use FTP, but it's enabled. That's enabled. And also, if I want to connect through FTP, I just need credentials, and for here I can find FTP credentials here, but I don't have access to the portal, so I will do it from command prompt. All right, so let's connect to this function using FTP. So first, I need to know the URL. So let me use this command. And this is FTP URL to connect the function. I'm going to paste here, and then I need credentials. And to get credentials, I must be just a reader. And so let me copy this, and this as well. All right, now I connected to this function application, and I can see actual functions. And I'm interested in this function. So the actual function is the number of scripts, maybe Python, it may be PowerShell, and this function is PowerShell based. So what I did, I took around that ps1 and rename it to around 1 ps1, whatever it may be. So I took original code and rename it, and I place my own code instead of original code. So now when function is running, it will run not original code to rotate credentials, it will run my code to extract credentials. All right, now let's try to run my own code. Just run my function. And so let's run function. Let me show you, by the way, real quick, that if I show you the code, functions. So the actual code, it will take this username and pass values and should show me their content and should give me like a string like this. Username is and the content of secret, and the password is and the content of secret. All right, let's see if I have any results. Yep, I do. So username is web app and the password is password. All right, so now let's try to connect. So first, I'm going to connect from SQL Server Management Studio here. Working fine. And let's try to do it from here. Web app. No, so I was able to connect from one machine, but I can't connect from another machine. Oh, why? I can't connect from here, but I was able to connect from there. Let me jump back to Portal and let me start to show you SQL database configuration. So when we have SQL database in the cloud, one of the first things that you may find is firewall. So on the server level and on the database level as well, we have firewall. And so by default, you must whitelist all of the IP addresses that will be able to connect to this firewall, to the SQL database. But there's a very bad configuration that quite often companies enable. And this configuration sounds like this: allow Azure services and resources to access the server. Unfortunately, I quite often see misunderstanding of many people about this configuration. So they think like, oh, that's how we can allow our own Azure machines or whatever it may be to access this server. No, not only. It means that any Azure IP address from any customer subscription, from any region, from any data center in the world will be able to connect to your, I mean, of course, they must know username and password, but they will not be filtered by firewall. So you open the door to every single virtual machine that deployed in Azure. Do you really want to do it? Hopefully no. So let's turn that off. Save that. And also let's disable public access at all. So now I want to allow only private access using VNet and do not allow any public access. So let's try to connect again. Here, of course, we will not be able to connect anyway. Let's reconnect here. Nope, I cannot connect. This public access denied. So now I cannot connect because it just private access and no public access. So what I can do if I still want to connect. So for these purposes, what I can try to do, I can try to compromise web application and through web application try to connect to SQL database, because web application is still compute service. And so I can try to connect to web application and from there try to connect to database. All right, let me jump back to demo. Jump back to demo and open my application. Application has the same problem as functions. May have the same problem, of course. May have the same problem. It has FTP enabled by default. So let me jump here again. I don't need any more, so I'll close all of this. And let's do the same that I did for what I did with functions. I'm going to do the same with web applications. So I will retrieve URL and I will retrieve credentials. And so let me copy this, open new tab, and take username, take password, and connect. Oh, why it's here? Anyway, so list from previous demo. Looks like I need to restart the application. Sometimes it hangs there. Now I can see I have a one pager. So I have a page called index.php, and so it's PHP based application. And so what I know about PHP is that PHP is executed on the server side. So if I upload my own PHP code, it will be executed on the server side, on the actual web application side. So let's try to do it. I upload my own code and let me just navigate to it. And look at this. Now I have access to actual virtual machine. This web shell is not super interactive. So what I want to do, I want to establish the better shell. So I want to use this code. And now I have better shell. So now I'm inside of the app service. Last thing I want to do is to connect to SQL database. But before this, let's take a look at my permissions. I'm www-data, so I'm a low privilege user, and I will not be able to install any tools to connect to SQL database. That's bad. But maybe I can try to do it without installation. So some tools like uSQL here, looks like it just hung there. I just need to restart, it will disappear. uSQL, that's the tool that may connect to SQL database without installation. Let me just call it uSQL. Damn it. So now I need to change my command. Let's call it just uSQL. And let's click refresh and upload this tool to my server. Next, I don't have Notepad. Let me open Notepad. So next, what I want to do, I want to connect to my SQL database with this stream. Yep, looks like I did. Now, what I can do, I can get a list of tables. And I can see the list of tables. So let's try to look at the content of registration table. So I'm gonna do this /G, and I can see this global Azure user is there. So now I'm inside of the database. That's what I want to do. All right. So and now we compromised application to application. Application and backend, everything was compromised. Before I finish, by the way, I have 8 minutes or 7 minutes now. I have 7 minutes. I will reserve a few minutes for your questions, but I want to show you one last piece here, which is a web application firewall, or WAF. So WAF, this is firewall that will stand in front of your web application and filter inputs, because most of the attackers, they will try to compromise your application, not like I did. They will try to do it from outside, and so you want to make sure that your application is protected. So let me show you how that may look like. So let me open the application again. So it's normal application, and let me open another instance which is protected by WAF. And now what I want to do, I want to run SQL injection in the regular application. And look at this, it shows me an error, and this error reveals some information like the path to the page, a SQL Server driver version, and so on. So it gave me some information, which is information may be used by attacker. If I try to do the same, but for application, with application that is protected, doesn't work. And quite common question I have from people like, oh, Microsoft has its own WAF. Why we don't have this WAF, or we can just purchase this WAF and so on. So it's not their WAF. They use open source mod security, but they have very good rules on this WAF. So what I did, I run fuzzer called WAF Ninja. That's the tool that will just send a bunch of requests to the application firewall and just look at the response. And so the goal is to find like a statement that can bypass the firewall. And you can see on the left the instruction, on the right result. I will slowly scroll, and you will see that all of those instructions, all of those constructions, all of those queries, they are not allowed. So they are blocked. So highly recommend you to think about WAF. It will cost additional money, but it's worth it. All right, last slide here about mitigations, and then I will. By the way, if you have any questions, so start to type them, please. By the way, if you had any question before, I don't see any questions except like why I can't see the picture. So if you have any questions, start to type them, because in a few minutes I will handle them. I have 5 minutes left. So mitigations. this is an offensive session, so I'm not going to talk a lot about mitigations. I will spend a few minutes on that really quickly. So what should you do? Just a few ideas to you. First of all, if you want to avoid compromising of AD forest with this account, do not allow regular server administrators access your AD Connect server. So AD Connect server, think about this like a domain controller. So it must be managed by domain admins because it's highly privileged server. It's highly sensitive server. Always keep principle of least privileges and keep an eye on the new service called AD Connect Cloud Sync. This is AD Connect, but in the cloud. It's a new service. It doesn't have all of the features that AD Connect has, but also funny. And secure, which is most important, not only funny, but secure. Then, if you want to avoid stealing the cache credentials, but if you can afford it, use PAW. So that's a separate workstation that will allow you to, administer only from that workstation. It's a good idea to administer only from workstations, separate workstation. Run commands against Azure VM. Principle of least privileges. Shell upload, disable FTP. Azure SQL connectivity is for this purposes. You just need to try first of all disallow this configuration. It's very bad. Use private link instead. Of course, you still your web app may be compromised. And from web app, like I showed you, your SQL may be queried, but chances are lower, much lower compared to another configuration. And finally, web app firewall. Well, firewall always useful if you have any web applications published to web. Oh, damn it! Sorry. They're on one. That should be fine. So before I handle your questions, I don't see any questions, by the way, but I really appreciate that you like my presentation. Thank you very much. Before you get rid of me, I have 2 minutes, so it's too early to get rid of me. Before you get rid of me, 2 more things. One thing you already know, which is my LinkedIn, but also I had another presentation on during Azure Global Azure called Pen Testing Azure Container Services. That's the similar session, but only about containers. If you want to watch something similar, but about containers, Kubernetes, Docker, container, and so on, go ahead, find this session. It should be recorded somewhere because I had this session in English during the Global Azure 2 times and one time in Russian. So if you like it, of course, maybe the second session you're gonna like either. All right. So when will you do a mitigation presentation? Oh, that will cost a lot. Mitigation. I don't do it because there are so many presentations how to protect, but very small number how to hack all of this. So, and I'm Russian. What do you want from me? Mitigations? I'm Russian. That's my burden is to hack everything. So sorry, do it yourself. All right. So I reached the end of my session.